Right, so these set of videos are basically going to go over what to do for the other part of P4 and essentially the merit task for P4 for web server scripting and some of the P5 web server scripting. We're going to be doing database stuff essentially for the next few weeks, which will obviously link back into the database unit. You will need to make sure you can get this running. Again, if you've got any issues, please come and let me know. I sound like a broken record at this point because every time that I ask if things are going wrong, nobody tells me until 2 weeks before something's due in or the day before something's due in. If it doesn't work, drop me an email or put something on Classroom and I'll try and sort it. Now, I try and answer questions as soon as I possibly can, and I usually do within 24 hours at the very least. But you need to come and see me before it gets out of hand because I know some people still need to do my last unit and they're not coming to me on a Thursday morning or anything like that. You need to come see me is the long and short of it. Yeah, I'm going to stop ranting because it seems like I rant every video. But you need to come see me if things are not going well. I know it's difficult at the minute, and I know everybody's struggling. Like everybody's struggling. It's not just you guys. Like we're struggling as well. But you need to come see if things aren't going well. Come and let us know. We can sort it. We're not going to harbour any resentment or anything like that against you. We are here to help. I think a lot of people are starting to find that the Thursday sessions are helping a lot more than what people think. So please try and attend them as well, because we can help you guys out with stuff. So, that being said, I'm going to go into what you need to do for this section anyway. So, what I'm going to show you, and I'll come back off that. So, I'm running at the minute UAMP. So for you guys using UAMP, just to make sure it's up and running, you need to make sure MySQL's running. If it's not, I'm going to talk to you about that and see if we can get something working properly. So let me know if UAMP doesn't, if MySQL doesn't work on UAMP, we will sort something out because Paul and I came up with an idea to try and fix it, so we will do that instead. But all you need to do is go on localhost on your browser and click on phpMyAdmin. Which should take you into here. Now, it probably won't, actually. Let me just see if I can log out of this. I think it's that one, yeah, log out. So it should probably come up with this. Your username's root, and your password is also root. So ROOT, and then just press go, and it should let you log in, and it should come up with that. Now, it will say that you probably there's been a data breach on the password. Don't worry about that. It's a common password to use for systems like this, and obviously it's only local, so it's not like it's one on the internet anyway, so don't worry about that. And I'm going to show you guys what to do for XAMPP as well. So for XAMPP, what you need to do is obviously get your XAMPP up, which I've got here. The start Apache. We'll start it and start MySQL. So you need to make sure them two are running. You don't have to worry about the other three. We're not ever going to really use them. And again, type in localhost, and it'll come up with this. And you just click phpMyAdmin at the top right here. And it should just let you log in. You shouldn't need a password for that. If you do, it's the same password. It's root and root, or it should be root and root, or either root and then there'll be no password and it'll just be blank. But you should all be able to get onto this. So I'll put it up on screen, hopefully with the magic of editing, and you should be able to see how you get on to it and if you need any passwords. But literally, it should just be a case of clicking it for XAMPP and for UAMP, just logging in with root and root. Right, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to make a new, and this is going to be a new database, and we're going to call the database, I'll just call it like DB1 because it's database 1, just to make it easier to remember. Press create. And now we've created a database. It should be on the left there as well, so it should crop up. Now, if you're using UAMP, you might have different things on here. Don't worry about that. As long as you create that, this is the one you'll be working off of. These are things that phpMyAdmin uses for like logging in and stuff like that. So don't mess about with them because you don't need to. So in the database 1, it should say there's no tables found in the database because we've only just made it. We need to make a table. So what for P4 you need to make sure that people can log in. So what I'm going to do is call this table users. Number of columns is 4. So we need to think of how many columns we need for this table. So like you should have done with P1 of database already, which some of you have, some of you haven't. But some of you have, you'll know that you need primary keys, which is a key to uniquely identify a field to make sure that you know what user it is, because your user could have the same name as somebody else or the same username and password as somebody else, potentially, depending on how you set your system up. How do you tell them apart in the network, on the database, sorry? And the way to do that is through an ID. So we need a column for the ID at least. We need a column for the username. We need a column for the password. Probably column for clearance level, so if they're admin or not, essentially what type of account it is. So that's at least 4. And maybe something like any other info. If you're going to have name or anything like that, you could. But for now, we'll just have 4. So I'll just leave it as 4. So the first column we'll have as a user ID, which, as you can see, I've already used this before. The type is what type of data we're going to store it as. We're just going to store it as an integer, so a number. What we're going to make this, if we can find it, here it is, index. So where it says index, we're going to make it a primary key, and it will come up here saying index names primary. You don't have to worry about all this stuff, you just press go. And what this will do is make it a primary key, and it'll say primary there. So what this will do, every time you make a new record, it will give it a new user ID, which is unique, and make it the primary key. Where it says A underscore AI, A underscore I, which is AI, click it, because that's auto increment. So it will change it from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, depending on how many people you have in it. It'll just automatically increment it. And you don't need to change anything else. That's it for now. So you can leave that, and it should be fine. The next one, we'll probably just have as username. The username is going to be a varchar, which is a variable character. So usually it's var in JavaScript and stuff like that, but in PHP it's varchar, which is just variable character. Now, unlike user ID, you don't have to give this a length, because obviously potentially you could have millions of users in, so you leave the length of that as blank. Where it says length for username, you've got to think how many characters that a username could be, and restrict that as well, because obviously you don't want your database to be flooded with really long usernames. So I'm going to limit it to about a 40 character username. So username can only be 40 characters long. And the default, we're not going to have a default, so we'll leave it so it can be blank, but we'll force them so it can't be blank, essentially. So where you've got null, if you tick that, that means it cannot be null, but we're not going to have it. That has to have something in it. So if you try and add a new username or a new person to the database with a username, and you don't, it's not filled out and it's blank, it will say that it has to have something in it. So we want to leave it as it cannot be null. The rest of it, you don't really need to do anything about. You can type in like comments and stuff if you want to just comment on what this is. So you could put this is the username of your user. You could put in this is the primary key for this table. It's just comments, so you'll never see it. It's just if you look at it in here, essentially. So you've got username, user ID. We'll have a password. Now the password is made up of letters and numbers, so that will also be a variable character. Potentially, this could be really long, because a password, we can hash it, or you shouldn't restrict what the size of your passwords is, because that's going to cause issues later down the line. So I'm just gonna make it 1,000, something like that, so you can have 1,000 characters in. That should be more than enough, really. Now we could have a default password if we never give them one, which we could just set up as password. Again, not ideal. I would not recommend that. It's just something you could have, but I'm going to leave it as none for now because we don't need it. We're not going to leave it as null either, so we cannot have it as null, and the comment we'll just put in as the password for your user. And then the last one we could have, I'm going to call it priv level, so basically privilege level. I'm just shorthanding it just to make it easier. And I'll leave it as an int. We'll only have it as 1 long, so it can only be one number. And the default, we will have a default, and we'll have the default as a 1. So that's like the lowest it can possibly be. So the lowest user that it could possibly be. We might have admin as like a 9 or something like that, potentially. So we could put, this is the admin privilege. I never sold privilege. I'll just put priv level of the user the database, and then we'll click save. So once you're happy with all this and it looks right, so these look correct, so the types of what they are, the names of it, you've given it a length, again user ID doesn't need one, and you make sure you give it a primary, it's auto incremented. Comments would be useful. You don't need to worry about these. You can move stuff and put stuff in, but you don't need it. Just click save at the bottom, and it should make this. So it's given it an int of 11, so 11 characters long. It just does that automatically. So primary key tells you what these are, the comments. Cannot be null for any of them, which I would expect anyway. Default for priv level is 1, so if we ever create one, it'll just give them a privilege as the lowest it possibly can do. And it looks like it's set up properly, so this looks good. It looks absolutely fine. So this is your table now. So you have a table, and as you can see on the left, there is a table. So if we click on that, it'll show you at the minute that it's completely empty. There is nothing in there. It's just, there's no users. So if we want to insert someone, so there's insert at the top here, we can put a value. Now you leave the user ID as blank. That will automatically fill out. So you never fill out the user ID ever, because you don't need to. So we could have the username as, say, I'll have me, and the password we'll just have as password because we'll want it just for scenario's sake. Now I'm going to pick someone out at random. I'm going to have James for no particular reason, and we're going to give him the password of pling 123 because why not? And then we can just press go at the bottom of this one, and it should put both of these in. Now it'll say 2 rows inserted if it's done it properly, inserted row ID 2, and it'll come up with all this code. Now we will need to use this code, so I would recommend you read what it says, but essentially what it says is insert into, so insert into the database, in the table users, these 4 things, and the values of nothing, because we told it not to, me, my password, my privilege level, and again, nothing, James, this password, and then 1, and then that's the end of the line. Now, if we check on browse, you should see it's pretty in look. So, user ID 1, user ID 2, it's got me, it's got James, it's got the 2 passwords, it's got the priv level. So, that's starting to now populate, which is what we want it to do. That's exactly what we want it to do. So now we need to check on your code if it works correctly, and I'm going to do that in a separate video. So I'm going to wrap it up there for now, but if you want to add any more people, you just go in insert and then do the same thing again. If you want to change your structure, so if you think something on here is not right, you just click on structure and then you click on change for which. So if you want to change the password to make it larger, for example, than 40, you just click on change, and then you can change it to a different value and then save. But obviously I've not changed it, so it's not done anything. But that's the table, and we will be adding more tables. So we've got users, and we'll be adding more tables as time goes on, because obviously we're going to make this a proper system and a proper database system. But for now, you need to create this, and in the next video, I will show you what you can do about logging into said system.